When Chris, Deanna, and I started to talk about speakers and how we were going to divide up people and how we were going to find people. By the way, every speaker that you saw yesterday and you will see today was kind of contacted through the TEA network. So networking really, really works, and I encourage you to do all of it. So we had a choice. Like, you've got storytelling, technology, architecture, which equals experience. How do you divide people up into those categories when most of us are polyvalent? Most of us do more than one thing. Certainly architects tell stories, lighting designers tell stories, designers tell stories, and designers have to know a little bit about technology. So it was a difficult thing for us to do. And this next speaker falls right into that category where art and technology merge.
Definitely.
Scott was trained as a theatrical designer, theatrical lighting designer. And when you're in theater, you can read a script, you can talk to the director to figure out what the emotion of light is supposed to do. But what about when you have to light history or light art? The lighting designer still wants to grab that emotion. So how does he do it? So Scott's going to tell us.
Definitely. Since 1997, Scott Rosenfeld has worked as the resident lighting designer for the Smithsonian American Art Museum and the Renwick Gallery in Washington, D.C. Scott is also chair of the Illuminating Engineering Society's Museum and Art Gallery Committee, where he works on standards in documenting best practices. Please welcome Scott Rosenfeld.
Does this thing work? Why should I care? So this is a story about light, art, and, well, caring. Let me give you a confession. When I was a child, my parents dragged me to art museums, and I hated it. I thought museums were spaces, especially art museums, were places specifically designed to torture children. And it doesn't have to be that way. I remember that every day when I'm lighting my museums. I want everything to look as good as it can, look like something, so I can captivate people's imagination rather than bore them. It's not always easy. This is the Renwick Gallery's new permanent galleries. And I don't know if you know this, if you go to museums, especially art museums, it's often best to bypass the special exhibit, especially if you're not familiar with that museum. It's the permanent collection where the really good stuff is, the stuff that's taken decades or centuries to acquire. The problem is, there's not necessarily a story. I can use light to tell a story of each object, from this great sculpture by Karen Lamont, where she went to the Czech Republic because they had the largest glass kilns on the planet after this, the Eastern Bloc fell. Or Albert Paley's, where he learned how to bend steel. But how they relate, that is hard, and because these objects may not relate in a permanent gallery the way they do in a special exhibit. When we did the Renwick, we tried something special. If taking a look from above, we connected the dots. So when you see, say, this object over here by Eric Domain, that green object, we connected it to an object across the room. So this is Eric Domain's origami, and we connect it to a bracelet by John Dumont. Or, this is a great one, the teapot gun relates to Judith Schachter's stained glass. Do you see a connection between these two? Can anybody say what may connect these two objects? You can see we gave you a little symbol here so you could find it in the next gallery. It's not easy, for me at least. What? The handle. This shape here kind of mimics the shape. The tracery, what was that? They're both shooting. There's both elements of danger in both of them. So I think doing this and asking our audience and challenging our audience this way was a risk. A risk because these connections are sometimes obvious, sometimes less obvious, and because I think one of the big things in museums is that when you're looking at a piece of art, people are afraid that they will not understand. And it's a risk that people won't be able to make that connections, and they'll become even more frustrated than they already are. I encourage you, please come to the Renwick. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you think this was a worthwhile experiment or it was a risk that was worth taking but didn't quite work out. What's the story with lighting? Some of you may be familiar with this list. This is what I learned my very first day of university when I was learning about light. This is everything I can control about light. There's 5 things, and this is it. If you are a master of this, you can both control light, shape light, start making decisions about how to make things important and what you want to see. And when you open your eyes and actually look at something, you look at me, you can use these to take apart light and figure out what is it that's allowing you to see. Intensity. You can see how bright the light is on my face. When you're picking a light bulb in the grocery store aisle, you know if you want a 40, 60, or 100 watt light bulb. Intensity is obvious. Distribution, is it a spotlight or a floodlight? So I've got spotlights here, there's lights everywhere. You see these little scallops of light with the shooting up the curtains. This wonderful texture on the wall. How do we paint with light? Each one of these is really big topics. Angle of light. So I've got all these lights coming from the front, filling my face so it looks flat. I've got 2 backlights behind me, giving me a little rim light. Uplight on the curtains. Where are you going to put the lights that's angle? Movement. This community system does that really well. Moving lights, flickering lights. Solar path across the day is movement. And color. What's interesting about this list, this was developed in the early part of the 20th century. And technology doesn't make that much of a difference. It's a mastery of using these tools. In some ways, it's technology independent, but things like color and with LED technology, we have ways to manipulate color and vision that we never even dreamed of. 1,000 stories I can tell about each one of those qualities. This one is about risk. What you're looking at here is a tapestry by Sheila Hicks. And when we are lighting tapestries, they're really light sensitive. Light will fade it permanently, irreversibly. So as you probably know in museums, we make it dim. We use the smallest amount of light so you can see to appreciate the object, and we mandate it. It's about 5-foot candles for the sake of argument. The thing is, it may not tell the story. And when I start lighting any object, I'm always asking, why do I care? Why is this thing here? What is relevant about it? And I looked at this and I'm like, it's about color. If you can't see the color of the object, that's what you're going to care about. A little bit of research said Sheila Hicks studied with Annie and Joseph Albers, the great 20th century masters of color, which confirmed this. At 50 lux, at 5-foot candles, it looked like nothing. So I started raising the light a little bit to 100 lux, to about 120 lux. And then it started to look like something. You could see the color. The problem is I'm now doubling the damage. I went to my conservator and she agreed. She said yes, because to light it in a way that people can see it would be damaging it, and it wouldn't be justifiable. That became a negotiation. So we're going to have to pull this thing off of you sooner because the damage is still very real and persistent. That's a short history of intensity. Distribution. And this is where it gets fun. I just want to make clear that when I talk about light today, I'm not talking about lighting fixtures. It's not about a pretty chandelier. A pretty chandelier is going to throw light everywhere in a very soft way. So it's not about this looking at this lighting fixture. It's about the cast light. And with that, would you be so kind to dim out the lights? So the slides are going to pick up at a great rate. Importance of precision spotlighting. The most difficult thing for me to get is a precise 4-degree spot. I actually worked with a company. I begged for them for 2 years to make it for me. They finally did an LED, so it's a super precise spot. And because it's LED, it doesn't produce a lot of heat, and I can add lenses. So I'm taking this plastic lens, and I can start spreading the light a little bit wider, a little bit taller. I can make it a lot wider, just a little bit taller. I can actually add a lens that zings it across the room. This allows me to do one of the secrets of lighting design, which is to put the light where you want it and take it away where you don't want it. Let me show you. This is a great installation by Maya Lin. She wanted to create a sense of place. This is the Chesapeake watershed. Sitting outside of this window is the Potomac. That's actually the Potomac River. That's the Delaware Bay. And when I first lit it, I'm like, hey, Mylan's a contemporary artist. She's a contemporary architect. I'm going to light it flatly like you do with architecture or modern art. And she came to me and she said, what have you done to my art? And she wanted chiaroscuro. She wanted for me to just put the light on her artwork. And I thought, before I'd created that vocabulary of lenses, it was impossible. But we found out we could create rivers of light. And she was thrilled. I was able to then tell the story she was trying to tell and put the audience in a better place to receive what Maya was trying to communicate. Let me show you another example. This is quilts from the West. This is work light. Again, about 50 lux or 5-foot candles, they're equivalent. And it's pretty boring. I then bring a team in, and this is the risk. It's expensive for a lot of people, a fancy lighting designer, and a ton of equipment. You will not find a lot of museums in New York City that spend the time on special exhibits to do what we've done here, which is really focus the light so you can see it, so you know the artwork is the most important. And you can see some of the stories now. You will more likely care about the stories that say this quilt here was a wedding quilt that was passed around an entire community, so each person, typically women, would stitch messages into the quilt for the young couple. Helps you care. Sculpture. This is a great sculpture by Paul Manchip, where I have a Europa-shaped light. So I took a light that's exactly her size and shape. I'm going to turn it off and push it off to the side, and you can see that it's right there. I turn it back on. If I were to use a large spotlight, the art wouldn't be the brightest thing. A weird spotlight on the wall would, a weird spotlight on the floor would. I want the art to be a pop. This is all about distribution. Let me show you a painting example. This is at the Portrait Gallery where Alexander Cooper does the lighting design. He let me drag my camera in. I've got 2 lights on it, one on the bottom, one on the top. Let me turn them off and push them off to the side, and you can see how we're lighting paintings. So the painting pops. We're putting the light where we want it, we're taking it away where we don't. Let me show you how we do an entire gallery. So you can see a little bit of light pushing in from the outside walls. Besides that, the light's off. First, we light the architecture. Walls, one at a time. Don't care where the artwork is, I'm just lighting the architecture. Next thing we do, we light up the paintings. One at a time. Maybe one light, maybe multiple lights. Then we light the sculptures. Finally, the back wall, and the artwork in the back. The artwork in the back is by August St. Gaudens, and it's the Adams Memorial. This was so beloved by the people of Washington, they called it Grief. It was actually in a graveyard, and it was a memorial to Henry Adams' wife who had committed suicide. Is it possible to have light help instill grief? Well, I was gonna try. Let me show you how I block this out, one light at a time. Now we put this, that photograph of that graveyard was taken on a cloudy day, a shadowless day. So I wanted to keep the shadows contained within the sculpture, but still have chiaroscuro. So you see the light and shadow within the sculpture. I did not want to show the face of the sculpture. The curator insisted upon it. So I finally light the face. But I still had my way. As you back up from this sculpture, the face goes black and doesn't become revealed until you walk up to it. We're making choices with light to help tell stories. That's the story of distribution. Let's talk about angle. Where are you going to put the lights? This is the Luce Center. There's Luce Centers, 3 of them in DC, in New York. I love this building, this room. 3,000 artworks. It's extraordinary. Come to Washington, please visit. I'm specifically going to talk about this eagle right here. This was unique because it's one of the only objects in my museum that has all of the angles so I can tell the story. Let's look at it from above. So we've got an eagle, and I've got a couple lights. I've got a front light here, which I'll show you, a top light, which is directly above the eagle, and 2 side lights. And I'm going to show you those lights one at a time. So this is front light. If you don't hire a lighting designer, or if you don't have enough equipment, this is how you do it. It allows very clear vision. You can see the detail on this bird. Shift it to top light. much more dramatic. The back wall goes away, the deck gets brighter, you can see the sharpness of that talon. You can start seeing some really lovely light and shadow on the eagle's head. Of course, we can have more than one light. I'm gonna add a front light in. The back wall comes back, but we start seeing a lot more detail. I'm gonna dim out the front light, and now I've got museum quality lighting. That's a choice. There's front light. Is that apparent? Is that pretty clear? A lot more drama here? Museums shouldn't be boring. Make choices about what you're lighting up. Let's take a look at side light, one at a time. Side light from the side coming in from the other side. Hey, that's interesting. Did you see how all the color went away here and you got that glare? Whether that is sparkle or glare that keeps you from seeing the color, that's a design decision. I actually often like glare because I'm afraid my museum's gonna be boring. That might be the glare that wakes somebody up. My curator may want you to see the patina. This is a discussion we can have. I'm gonna add the side light in from the other side. Hey, that's starting to look fabulous. Just a little bit of front light. That's a very different eagle. That could be an eagle that could be a symbol of strength for our country. Unlike this eagle, which looks like it could rip your lungs out. Same eagle, two different stories. And I find it's a bigger problem not making a choice than making the wrong choice. Those 45-degree angles often work well if the object's in the middle of the floor, but if it's right up against the wall, you just get ugly shadows to the left and right. That becomes visual noise, and that is not a good lighting choice, in my opinion. Flat artwork, if I've got a painting, my big choice is just to keep the glare off of the visitors so it's not blinding you when you stand in front of it. This is a light-sensitive artwork, William Fosdick doing Joan of Arc. I'm trying to use the smallest quantity of light so I don't damage the wood. So I come in from a low angle to tell the story of Joan the Arc and make that halo as shiny as I can. This is Jocelyn Chateauvet's installation, where she took the light sources and put them in her sculptures. And here she has two layers, a back layer, which is opaque, and this open weave. She asked me to put the light between these two. And it looks like this. We subsequently purchased this artwork, reinstalled it in galleries where I wasn't allowed for money's sake to add the light, and it looks like this. Very different. Now, of course, the flattest light is if you put the light right next to your head, like a flashlight, or like a camera flash. So I had the tripod set up. Same artwork, completely different depending on the angle of light. Next up is movement. So let me show you the art of video games. Projection, easy. That's movement. And movement's a powerful tool, and this audience knows how to use movement so well. I'm gonna show some kind of non-intuitive examples. It is the movement of light which is deepest within our DNA. Where is something? Is that something prey or food? That's deep within us. Now the other properties of light, intensity, distribution, angle, they're more associated with the what system. What is it? So we know, is it prey or can we eat it? Projections. So I've got these projectors telling the story of video games. I'm gonna project this onto the floor so people can see Pac-Man and Mario Brothers. What was lovely about this, as people moved through these projections, you got this incredible sense of movement. It worked beautifully. I'm gonna give an example that is not about movement, but while we're here, I wanted to talk about the back of this man's head. So, working with curator Chris Melisinos, we wanted to really say that what completes the story of the art of video games is the player playing the game. And we wanted to make that apparent. So it was the lighting, the back of this man's head and his back, which I really wanted to signal that this is what completes it. So there's lots of people waiting in line to play these video games, and not only am I getting him something to look at, I'm giving him that cue that this is what makes the artwork. And I'm lighting from the back so he can play the video game without being blinded. Flicker is evil. Here I want to talk about how light can actually hurt the visitors to our museums, to our attractions. So this is largely about light bulbs. Some light bulbs flicker. It could be any type of lighting technology. Within LED by no means have to flicker, but LEDs that are not properly driven, that are not properly made. I've literally gotten into fighting matches with manufacturers because they refuse to spend an extra $1 per lamp or so to make their LEDs not flicker. And flicker is a problem because it's a trigger for migraines. It could be a stimulant for people with autism. It can cause photoepileptic seizures. So what I'm talking about is high rate flicker. So there's strobing, but this is something that may not be visible until somebody's moving through the environment, and then people's hands or bodies will go up, 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 up. This was a problem with magnetic fluorescent ballast back in the day, and they used these flicker checkers to help sell new electronic ballasts, so fluorescents haven't flickered in about 20 years. And if you see a checkerboard pattern, it flickers. There's no need for it, it hurts our guests, so let's get rid of it. And color. Color is where it gets complicated. And also where new technologies allow us to access parts of our visual system that didn't exist before. There's two fancy words. There's chromaticity. That is the apparent color of light. So if you either look up at the lights or if you see the light on a white surface, you can see what is the color of light. That's a tool, we can use it. The second is, how does that light allow us to see all kinds of colors, whether it's blue, red, or green? So I can take any one color of light and tweak the spectrum so the reflected colors appear different. We talk about these two words, which is color fidelity. That color of color rendering can either match something like incandescent, or it can make things more colorful or duller. And those are two choices we have. So our design choices are, first we pick the color, and then we choose the spectral properties to decide how colorful our built environment will be. Let me show you. This is a great mural by Marvin Bierbaum. Now I can choose any color under the sun. I've got light bulbs. I can press a button. I can turn it blue. I can turn it whatever, red. Because I've got almost no white here, if I'm just making choices of a little bit warmer, 2700 Kelvin or 3000 Kelvin, those are not really choices. We're gonna white balance after between 30 seconds and 2 minutes. We're not gonna see the difference between those warmer cools because there's no white reference unless we look up at the lights. Our choice for color rendering, that can be a choice. And now we can tweak with new technology and increase the saturation. So it's the difference between this quite warm, I'll go backwards. So this to me looks like we're looking at a picture of people in a factory. As I increase the saturation, you can feel the heat. It's almost inviting you into the factory. Let's take a closer look. So this is the presentational, where we're just seeing the factory in my mind's eye, or we can start feeling the warmth of the factory. Is that clear? Does that make sense? We've been able to do this with photo rendering programs for quite a while. So color rendering, you'll see down here with the saturation, vibrancy, and clarity tabs. Up here with temperature and tint, that's chromaticity. Intensity, our exposure and contrast. How bright is the image on your photo software? And here, what is the arrangement of highlights, shadows, black and whites? That's distribution. Now, the thing about it, when we say color of light, if we want a colorful environment, it's not necessarily about manipulating the color of light. All those other properties I talked about will have a palpable impact for how we see a colorful environment. Let me show you. This is a great exhibit by Lino Tagliapetra. Lino was the person who brought the secrets of Venetian glass to the West. He taught Chihuly how to blow glass in ways that he never dreamed possible. This is under work light. After a ton of work, we come back and the environment looks like this. So we took all those properties. Intensity, it's brighter. Let's take a closer look. Distribution, you can see I'm creating this sense of water and movement. And Lino gave me a vessel that I can pour the light into so the artwork glows if I use the angle of the light straight into the artwork. Here, I created ugly spots on the walls, which gives people the opportunity to stand directly in front of this and see what is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. So your eyes go through this plate glass to that white dot beyond, this white wall beyond. Let me show you another example. This is from a recent exhibit at the Renwick. Gabriel Dahl, part of his Plexus series, where he spent 2 weeks with a pole and a lift, threading thousands of threads between the ceiling and the floor to create this rainbow. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Let's get the people out of here, and I'll show you how I did it. So this is the lighting that we finally developed after spending about a week working with Gabriel, trying a few different things. I'm going to show you the work light. So quickly, we discovered you can't have spotlights shining through the artwork, or you're not going to get what Gabriel was offering here. When I first saw the artwork, it was under natural light, and this was extraordinary. This was more ethereal and more beautiful in my mind's eye, but I had a problem with the sun. It went down every day. So electric lighting was how we're going to present it. So we eventually came up with this lighting. And we use, again, all the properties of light. When I chose a lighting fixture, I actually chose a low color rendering lighting fixture because it was brighter. And it made all the colors brighter and more apparent rather than just the reds of the high color rendering fixture. We shuttered the light off, so glare was minimized and hit less people in the eyes. And so the artwork was the brightest thing, and the rest of the environment went dark. And it was successful. We increased our attendance while this was up 500%. We had, at the Smithsonian, you're not allowed to get married, so people were rushing in, saying their marriage vows underneath this thing, and then rushing out before they got caught. It was amazing, and it was such a delight to have finally this little museum, tiny museum across from the White House. We had lines of people in the rain all the way down the street. This is what we have when we can make specific choices and show really beautiful things. And that's what I have to share with you today.